And I'm excited to be here and answer all of your training and behavior questions. I know it is Christmas Eve, so hopefully we'll have some people joining and not too many people busy with the holidays. Um, Also, if this is your first time joining us, when you post, please give me your name and where you're from. I just need like state or country or whatever. Hi, Cindy. And that way I can enter you into the drawing. Um, so if I will be writing down names as I see them. Cindy, I know you've been on before, but remind me where you're from. Emily, I know where you're from, so you don't need to put that down. I know Emily's from Virginia. Cindy, I just need like a state. Um, and then, um, okay, and then I'll talk to you about barking, Florida. That's right. Okay. So yes, if you're new, please just put your name and what state or country you are from, because it just comes up at, well, like you guys came up as your name. Sometimes it just comes up as Facebook user, depending on which platform you're joining us, whether it's Facebook or um, like YouTube um, or whatever. So sometimes it doesn't have your name. Okay, barking, 6 months, driving us nuts. Yes, I can relate. So with barking, you want to know first why the dog is barking. If it's demand barking, I will try to ignore. Um, if so, like if my dogs bark because somebody's at the door, I let them bark once to alert me. Number one, I don't have a doorbell, so people have to knock, and if I'm upstairs, I don't hear it. So I will let the dogs bark once. Hi, Laura. And then I will see what they're barking at, and and then I'll say, okay, got it, quiet. Um, so if it's demand barking, like wanting attention or wanting food or wanting to play, I tend to ignore that. And so if they're barking at like something, if I hear my dogs barking outside, I will go out and see what they're barking at. It could be the neighbor mowing the lawn. I mean, obviously not in the winter because right now it's like freezing cold here, which is why I've been outside today with clients and it is so cold. So I decided to just stay home with my pups tonight instead of go to my office. So I'm here in my living room again. Um, so I will go out and see what they're barking at, and then I'll say, oh, that's just the neighbor mowing his lawn, so quiet. And and then if they continue to bark, then I bring them in so that I don't, so that behavior doesn't get reinforced. Um, so so your dog like barks if a toy drops off the couch. I mean, if he's wanting to play, you could engage in play with him. And and then the other thing is you always want to think about what do I want the dog to do instead. So today I was working with a new puppy. It was a little blue nose pit bull, and oh my gosh, this dog was constantly jumping, which normally I turn my back and ignore, but the dog was jumping and like grabbing on the clothes, and I'm surprised I don't have like 100 holes in my clothes. Um, but for that, like I will read. So I taught the dog how to hand target, and I redirected with hand targeting. Um, yes, and if he wants you to play, then ignore. Another thing that I do, so you can have the dog like sit and hand target, and then give attention. So it doesn't always have to be a treat. So it's like, okay, sit, touch, and then I will play with you for a little bit. Um, and I don't give dogs attention 24/7 because obviously, you can't do that. You can find something else for the dog to do, like a snuffle mat. Great. I was just going to recommend crate. Um, so what I would do is like, okay, scenario wise, if you're trying to do something and your dog barks, then ask them to do something else. So like, let's do a downstate, or let's do a sit and a hand target, or let's do watch me, or let's do something else. And then I will play tug with you as a reward. So instead of giving a treat, then you can give attention, play, tug, things like that. So sometimes Jade will bark for attention because I taught her how to speak on cue. And if you see me looking away, it's just because I am writing down people as they um, hop on so I don't forget. Um, so for eating dinner, um, I would teach the dog something else. So like that's when I would do the crate. So either you can teach like either okay, it's dinner time, so we're going to go to our crate and enjoy a yak chew. So we're going to eat dinner. You're going to go in your crate and do like a peanut butter Kong or a yak chew or a bully stick. Um, or you can teach like a go to your place. So like, okay, you're going to go to your mat and you're gonna have your chew item, and we're going to eat dinner. Because if you're eating dinner um, and your dog's barking, that's kind of like begging or wanting attention or wanting food, things like that. So I have my cousin and his son staying here, and I will admit my dogs beg, but it's because I reinforce it because I live here by myself, so it doesn't bother me because I usually will feed my dogs from my plate anyway. Um, but when they were here and trying to eat and my dogs are begging, like that's not okay. So we either do like a mat or it's like, okay, you're going to go in your crate so that you can't beg or you can't bark. So I would I would first teach like a good go to your place and settle, and then start to add increasing distractions and reward your dog for staying calm on the mat, like while you're eating dinner, things like that. If a toy drops off the couch and your dog barks, ask for a sit, watch me touch, anything like that, and then you can get the toy for the dog. Um, if Jake barks for attention, sometimes I'll say, "Oh, that's such a good speak, but I didn't ask you for that. I didn't ask you to speak, but that was a really good speak." And then I just don't give her any more attention. So if your dog's wanting your attention 24/7, I would start doing more mental stimulation. So this dog that I worked with today was out of control, jumping, barking, biting. And after working with the dog, um, he fell asleep on the couch because training is mentally stimulating. It tires them out. You could also do a snuffle mat. Um, you can also play. So 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? I can't remember if it was yesterday or Monday. All my days are running together. Um, I showed some owners how to play with a fork pole with their dog. And this is a dog that's also like constantly trying to chew on the owner's feet or grab clothes. So complaining about the dog, like, biting their ankles and things like that. So we did the flirt pole, and after like 10 minutes, the dog was crashed out asleep because the way I do it teaches impulse control. So the dog has to sit and wait. And then I throw the toy, and then I teach it drop it, and then I pick up the toy, and the game stops until the dog sits and waits again, and then we go again. So maybe doing some nose work, snuffle mat, flirt pole, um, maybe break up your training sessions so they're like 10 minutes 3 times a day if you can, or 15 minutes 3 times a day. If your dog's 6 months old, you could probably do 15 minutes 3 times a day, because that's going to give your dog that mental stimulation. Um, Shaping games is really good, like shaping tricks, things like roll over. If you've heard of 101 Things to Do with a Box, that is an awesome shaping game that will tire your dog out, because they have to think like, okay, what does my owner want me to do? And there's really no wrong answers to that. It's more, anytime the dog interacts with the box, they get a click and treat. Um, the goal is kind of to get your dog to stand in the box. But if they paw at it, if they put 1 foot in, but then after they do that, then it's like, oh, you've already done that. Let's see if you can give me something else, and then wait for the dog to interact more. So there's no wrong answers, but you want the dog to figure out like what they need to do to get the treat. If you Google 101 Things to Do with the Box, I bet you can find it. If not, feel free to email me at Tracy with an I at pupford.com, and I'm happy to send you a copy of it. I can also send you a handout on mental enrichment and give you some ideas of stuff to do to help tire your dog out. So, like I do nose work with my dogs, puzzle toys, anything where they have to use their nose or figure stuff out will help. So, hopefully that'll give you some suggestions. One thing with behavior, we always have what we call an antecedent, and that's what happens right before the behavior. So, is it like because the toy dropped, or is it because there's somebody outside, or is it because we're eating dinner? And then you can think about what you want to do in each situation. So in some situations, you might be like, oh, okay, got it, now quiet. And you can teach a quiet. Or you can crate them, or you can teach them to go to your place, or you can ignore. So like any one of those would be fine. Okay, what is proper etiquette when guests enter the house? Our 11-month-old barks as soon as the doorbell rings and rushes at the door. She barks a couple times at the guest until she can sniff the guest, and they say hello to her, and then she stops immediately. That is a great question. So you can't cue her to go to her place, and I do that in some instances with my dogs, and I tend to do that more with reactive, and it kind of depends on if the dog barks as soon as they hear the doorbell. Again, you can allow your dog to bark once and then say, okay, quiet, just the doorbell, I got it. Or if you don't want them to bark at all, then I would condition your dog to a doorbell. So what I do is I have like some apps on my phone, or you can use YouTube, and I will start with a really low volume, play the sound, and as soon as the dog hears the sound, I start to treat. And then when the sound stops, the treat stops. And then I turn it up like 1 notch and then do it again. And I continue to do that until I have it at full speed or full volume. If you can't find the sound of your particular doorbell, you can like record your doorbell from your phone and just use your own doorbell. So if you get to a volume where your dog barks, then no treat, but then back down on the volume and work back up to having it at full or at like whatever volume. So you could do that so that you can teach your dog when you hear the doorbell. If you're quiet, you get rewarded and you get a treat. Then what I do with my dog, which is kind of like it's kind of like place. Only I have a spot where I have them sit by the door, and I teach a sit and a wait. So wait is like wait a second, So I do differentiate between wait and stay. If you want to use stay, you can do that too. When I'm teaching this, I actually have a sign on my door that says dogs in training. Thank you for your patience. Don't be offended if I close the door in your face or something like that. You can probably be a little bit more tactful than I am. But I basically want people to know that I might close the door because I ask the dogs to sit and wait, and then I will start. So if this is the door, I start to like open the door. If the dog moves towards the door closes. And then I put the dogs back in a sit and a wait. So so your dog rushing towards the guest is going to make the door close. If they sit and wait, the door opens, um, and then I'll invite people in and then release the dog and say, okay, now you can go sniff and say hi. If the dog starts to run towards the person, I will have them back out of the door and I'll close the door. So before I do this with like real live like company or whatever, I usually pay neighbor kids like $5 to come and knock on my door so that we can practice. Or if I know somebody's going to come over, I will say, um, hey, as long as you're coming over, will you help me with a little training session? And I'll kind of tell them what to do. So, like, if the dog moves before I release them, please back away from the door and I'm going to close it. And you, and then I instruct people don't give the dogs any attention until I release the dogs to like go say hi. And then I also tell them like if the dogs jump, which I only have one jumper, so I'm like if she jumps, I want you to turn your back and ignore her, and then I will tell her to sit, and as soon as she sits, then you can say hi. So um, I think that might be easier than teaching a go to your place because the dogs want to say hi, and you can eventually then do the place and wait if you want them farther away. But for an 11-month-old, it might be easier. I have the dogs maybe 4 feet from the door, so they're right there. And then if they move, the door closes, the person goes away. If they wait, the door opens, the people come in, and then I say, okay, go say hi. And you can usually teach this in one session. But then it's like a lot of practice. So the dog just kind of learns that this is what we do. So it's the pre-MAC principle, if you've heard me talk about that, which means a dog is more likely to do something they don't really want to do if it leads to something they really do want to do. So it's kind of like eat your vegetables and then you get dessert. So it's like you're going to sit and wait and then you get to say hi and sniff and things like that. Um, because that's going to put your dog a little bit closer to the person so they don't have as far to like rush to the person. And as soon as the person walks in and you release, they can like sniff them, say hi, and do that. And then eventually, if you want to cue like a go to your place, you could do the exact same thing, and then release the dog to come and say hi. So hopefully that helps. And I do put a note on the door just so people aren't offended that like I'm going to close the door in your face, because um, that's and the other thing too is sometimes you don't always know when people are going to come over. So if it's somebody, like say it's the UPS guy that needs you to sign for something, well, you don't want to keep closing the door in his face. So in that instance, it might be good to, if you're not expecting somebody, you could do like a go to your crate or go to your place. Um, but I like to practice it a lot. Just remember that every time you don't ask your dog to wait and they're allowed to rush up to a person, then they get reinforced for that behavior. So you want to, as much as you can, Daphne, you're kind of hogging the couch. You want to, as much as you can, really reinforce that behavior so the dog learns that sitting and waiting is what's going to get them to be able to see company. Um, okay. Cindy, with yours, I feed him before we eat. Yeah, my dogs eat before I eat too, but they usually want what I have because I have people food and they get dog food, even though it's good dog food. Um, they usually want what I have, but it's my own fault because I've reinforced that behavior. It's like if you beg, I will probably give you something from my plate. But I do make them sit and do other stuff. Um, so it could be a learned behavior, but I think if you create your dog and give um, Joey something to do before or during while you eat, then that's going to help. So, like, he's got his own thing to do while you're eating. Um, we also this week taught a puppy that was like counter surfing, always in the kitchen and trying to steal stuff. So we created like a barrier, an imaginary threshold, and we taught the dog to either sit, stay, or down, stay, and not even come into the kitchen. So you can create a threshold. It's like, okay, when we're eating, you're behind this imaginary line, you're going to do a down stay. Um, and then if the dog barks, I would do a quiet, and then when your dog is quiet, create them with a toy or peanut butter Kong or whatever, and let your dog do something else while you're eating. Um, okay. Now, I'm going to go back and answer this question, but while I'm talking about this dog, if your husband has treats by his side to hush him, is that at the dinner table? Because if you're at the dinner table and your husband has treats, that's going to kind of encourage the dog to like be right there and bark because it's like, oh, if I bark at the table, dad's going to give me treats. So that's why I would put him in a totally different part of the house in a crate, somewhere else while you're eating. And I don't treat every single time I have to do a quiet because the dogs will learn that if I bark and they tell me quiet, then I get a treat. Then I bark again, they tell me quiet, I get a treat. So I only give a treat when I'm like teaching the quiet, but then as soon as I feel like they know what quiet means, then I will use praise. So like they'll bark, I'll say quiet, and then I'll say, oh, good dog, good quiet, thank you. And I'll just use like praise and affection so that they don't get this learned behavior of I bark, I get a treat. I bark, I'm quiet, I get a treat. So just kind of keep that in mind too. Okay, during lockdown, we weren't allowed to go for walks or anything. By the time we were allowed out again, he doesn't walk nicely anymore. He pulls the whole time and is so excited to be out and see other people, pets, that he nearly pulls me down. Yeah, so this is a great, so this came up as Facebook user. Where are you from? I'm just wondering where you're from that you were on lockdown. I mean, we had kind of lockdown here for a little bit, but we could still go out and go on walks and go to the grocery store and stuff like that. So I'm just curious as to where you're from. So all of my dogs are rescue dogs. So you can teach a dog at any age how to walk on leash. The other thing too is this, and I get it, with COVID and all this craziness, it's been hard to get dogs out, get them socialized, things like that. But not to worry because um, like if you don't continue to practice, your dog will lose behavior, which is why the 4 stages of learning, the 4th stage is maintenance, which means you keep working on stuff. So like Maddie, who's 11, I'll show you Maddie. This is Maddie. She's 11. She still sits for her food, and she still, um, does. We still work on her training. So I still use her sometimes to help work with reactive dogs and things like that. So, she still, we still practice heel. We still practice. I taught her and Jade how to speak on cue because sometimes I need them to make noise. Um, but at 11 years old, yes, she still gets reinforced and we still practice. Um, so what I would do is start over as if your dog doesn't know how to heel. And if your dog did used to walk nicely, I think it's not going to take very long for your dog to learn it again. So there are some different, there are basically four different techniques that I use, and then I'll explain all of them, and then I'll tell you which one I personally use for mine. So remember, if you let your dog pull you to go see other people or other pets, then that gets reinforced. So if the dog gets to pull you from point A to point B and it works, the dog's going to continue to do it. Um, so going back to the Premack principle, you can stop. So the first one is the stop and go game. It's like, oh, tight leash means we're going to stop. We're not going to go anywhere. Loose leash means we are going to go. And if you, so every time the dog pulls, you stop. And then if the dog sits or turns to look back at you, usually when they turn to look back at you, it gives you a loose leash. And then you go again. What I do on my training walks with clients' dogs, it's like I have one dog who is a male and wants to sniff on the side of the road where the snow is, because there aren't sidewalks, and so everybody that has a dog that's walked down this road, their dog's peed, and so the dog wants to sniff everything. And this is a 110-pound dog. So I'll say, okay, we're going to heel for 20 steps. And then when we go 20 steps, then I'll say, okay, now you can go sniff. So now you can go pee on this bush. Also, if we see another dog, if the dog starts to pull, the second technique is to change direction. So if the dog starts to pull, I turn around and go this way, and I just say, let's go, and we go away from the other dog or the person. So I never let the dog pull me towards something. If they pull, I either stop or we turn around and change direction. And then when the dog's by my side, I will reward and then we'll turn back around. And as long as the dog's not pulling, we'll get closer to that person or that dog. If the dog starts pulling again, we turn around and go the other direction. Depending on where we are, sometimes I will do a sit and a wait. And if the dog doesn't wait, then I'll just say, let's go, and we'll go further away. But sometimes if the dog waits, then I'll let the other person come up and let the dog say hi to the person or the other dog. So it teaches the dog impulse control, and that pulling is not going to get them the opportunity to see the other person or the other dog. So stop and go, change direction, and only loose leash means that they get to go. The other one that I use when teaching loose leash walking, which will work at first, but if your dog sees another person or a pet, that might be more distracting and more reinforcing than the third one that I use, which is dropping treats right in front of your dog. So at first I start with every step. So as we're walking, I'll drop a treat right in front of the dog to get them to slow down, nose to ground, so that they start walking more slowly and they're not so much focused on their environment. Then when the dog's walking, with that, then I go every 2 steps, every 3 steps, every 5 steps. And so the dog is getting not a treat every step, but we're starting to um, like go longer distances before the dog gets the treat. So I use that one when I'm working with really strong dogs and we're learning loose leash walking. Um, then I will sometimes use that. The last one that I use is the circle method. And again, it depends on where you are. If you're on a trail, which I am a lot with clients' dogs, there's not enough room to do this. So again, sometimes you have to pick which which one is going to work for your environment you're at. But the circle method is basically once the dog starts to pull, then I start to just walk in a big circle. So the dog's on the outside. And I continue to walk in a big circle until the dog like comes in close to me, and then that loose leash and that coming into me means we get to go straight again. Then if the dog starts pulling, I turn and we do big circles until, and the dogs get bored with that. They don't want to do circles. They want to go ahead. But we keep doing these big circles. So again, this won't work on a trail, but if you're walking down the street, and I would teach your dog this first, and then see if you can get somebody to help you by standing on the side of the road, being a distraction, having another dog. And if your dog like pulls towards that dog, then start circling and waiting till your dog like comes in and then go straight again. Then you can go up, and as long as your dog's not pulling, then you can allow them to go say hi um, and see the other dog. There's actually a really good YouTube video on circle method. Um, if you type in circle method on YouTube, several will come up, but it's the one where you see a really wide road, and I believe the girl is walking a German Shepherd. So I usually send that link to clients because it's not on my handout. My handout only has the first three, and so I just like to show a picture of what the circle method is. So try those. Um, and when we're on walks, I don't do a formal heel because most people can't walk as fast as dogs need. So it's good for them to like sniff and, we call it reading the white pages because they can tell like if there's another dog there, if it's a dog they know or not, if it's male or female, spayed or neutered. Like there's so much information that they can get, and it's really good enrichment for them to sniff. So I do let them do that, but I don't let them pull me. So if the dog like pulls, it's like, oh, let's go this way. And then when the dog walks nicely, then it's like, okay, now you can go sniff. So you don't always have to use a food reward. The reward can be, okay, now you get to go say hi, or now you can go sniff the snow, or now you can go sniff that tree or that bush. So I actually also use this with a reactive dog that has a really high prey drive and it gets super hyper focused with like birds and like chipmunks, which we don't see as much now that it's winter, but during the summer. And he would just like pull towards every single tree because he could hear chipmunks up there and birds. So we would either turn and go the other way, or I would have him sit and wait, focus on me, and then I would say, okay, now you can go sniff the tree, because I knew he wasn't going to like catch the bird or the chipmunk. So it's not like I was letting him go after other animals, but I was letting him, get to go sniff the tree, but only if he wasn't pulling or if he would sit and wait. So try those. I really think that if your dog did work perfectly, it's just going to take some remedial training. And remember not to allow him to pull. Depending on how big your dog is, you can always use like a front clip harness, so that if he does pull, it turns him back towards you, so that he doesn't get that reinforcement for pulling you. So hopefully that'll give you some different ideas. Let's see if I can make that go down. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I clicked on the wrong thing, so now it's just showing your question up there. Okay. Okay, to go over speak and quiet. So first I will teach a speak. So to teach speak, I'll either get the dogs like really excited, like I'll have a toy and I'll say, "Oh my gosh, what do I have? What do I have? What do you say? What do you say?" Um, and get them at first to even like do like even a small. I usually shape it so even like a small whine, I'll reward, and then I'll wait for a bark. Another way that you can do it is a capture. So this is what I did with Jade. We did when I was in puppy class. I I had an assistant, and so I would demo with Jade, and then I would go around and help each person um, with their dog. So I handed Jade off to my assistant, and she would bark because she wanted to get back to me. Let's see if I can move this. No, why it's doing that. Anyway, so I turned around and I said, "Caitlin, I want you to click and treat every time Jade barks." And she's like, "What?" I'm like, "Just do it." And so every time Jade would bark, she'd click and treat. And then Jade would bark because I was off with another dog and she wanted to be with me. And so Caitlin would click and treat. Um, then after class, um, then I kind of like had a treat and I'm like, "Oh, what do you say? What do you say?" And then when she would bark, then I put it on cue. And then I would teach her like the speak. And it's been a while. I may have even, after Caitlin had clicked and treated several times, like in between clients when Jade would bark, Caitlin would click and treat, and then I would say, "Good speak," so that she started to learn the word speak. So I put it on cue. So I teach speak first, and then to do quiet, what I do is I will say, if the dog's barking, I'll say quiet, and I'll wait for the dog to take a breath. So a lot of times it is bark, 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 and then they'll take a breath. And as soon as they take that breath, I click good quiet and give a treat. So sometimes it's hard to time it because you're waiting for that breath, and then it happens that sometimes they hurry and bark before you get that click in. It's okay, just do it again. Um, so that's how I mark the quiet. So when they're barking, I'll say quiet once, and I'll wait for them to give me a break. So sometimes they'll like bark, 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 take a breath. And during that breath, I hurry and click. And that's why I use a clicker. If you don't use a clicker, you can use yes. You can use a verbal marker. So it's yes, treat, good, quiet. And that's how I teach the quiet. Um, how to brush your puppy's face, slicker brush or comb. Um, it depends on what kind of puppy you have. So if it's a long-haired, I mean, all my dogs are short-haired, so I just use like a regular brush. I did just buy a slicker brush for them. Um, so I would say either. I mean, I would probably ask a groomer. So whenever I have a board and train with me that has, like, I've had a Bernedoodle here, I've had a golden doodle, and I've had to call my groomer and say, what kind of brush should I use to brush the mats out of this dog? And so I would honestly ask a groomer. Um, I would say whatever works. If your dog gets really tangled, I like to use like a good conditioner first and then kind of brush through it. Um, but it's whatever is going to work but not be aversive for your dog. So if your dog, if it's something that's going to like really pull on mats and make them yelp or make them hate it, then I wouldn't use that because we don't ever want it to be um, like a negative experience. So if it's easier to use a comb to get through it, I would go over, I would do it like really slowly at first, maybe comb a few and then treat, and then comb a few and then treat. So yeah, I would basically say um, whatever works best for you and doesn't hurt your dog. Okay, now I've got to scroll up. Okay, so Laura is asking, so we crate our dog during our meals. We give him a frozen stuffed food toy. He's content until the Kong runs out, then it's whining and howling. Um, he doesn't protest the crate any other time, like at night, it's only when we're eating. We've tried ignoring, and we're currently training a place, but sometimes he has to be crated during meals. We don't give him any attention for it. We also cover the crate. Due to size space, the crate has to be in the living room, which is close to the dining room. Only if you have time. That's cute. I would be happy to answer. So, um, what I would do is, if your dog is content with the Kong until the Kong runs out, and then your dog is whining and howling, um, it's probably because he wants to be with you, you know, where you're eating. So for that, I would start doing like the go to your place or go to your crate, and then like do kind of like the relaxation protocol that you've probably heard me talk about. If you Google Karen Overall's relaxation protocol, I'm sure it'll come up. If not, you can email me and I'm happy to send it to you. But it basically teaches your dog how to be calm with increasing distractions. So first you just go 5 seconds of calm, reward on the mat, or you can reward in the crate, and then 10 seconds. And then it slowly builds up to where like you can knock on the door. There's 14 levels, but then you can add your own levels. Like, I would like sit down at the table and then get up, go reward. Sit down at the table for 5 seconds, go up, reward. Um, you could also, which at first it might be kind of a pain, but um, you could be like eating, and while your dog is doing the frozen stuffed food toy, you could calmly walk over, toss a treat in the crate, and say like, good settle or good quiet or good call, like whatever you want to call it, and then go back and eat. As soon as the Kong runs out, before the dog starts whining, you could go over, just calmly like toss a treat in, good calm, and then go back and eat. And then build up that time to where you can actually sit down and eat. And then you could teach a quiet too, just like I talked about. So if the dog's whining and howling while you're eating, I would do quiet and then wait for your dog to take that breath and then, yes, good quiet, and then reward and then go back and eat. So I actually, if I have company over, which I don't very often, but like when my cousin's here, I don't like my dogs to beg from other people, so then I will crate them. Also, depending on You could give him a couple of things to do, such as like a frozen Kong, and then put in like a yak chew or something that's going to take longer to get through. Like it takes my dogs are super chewers, and it takes a while for them to get through a yak chew, like a lot longer than it would take me to eat. But since I'm single, I don't cook. I live on like cereal and ramen and protein bars. So my dinners are like 5, 10 minutes. But if your dinners are longer because you're probably like a normal person that actually sits down and eats, um, you can give them like different things to do. So as an example, if you want to keep your dog busy longer, like you could put a snuffle mat down with a stuffed Kong and maybe a yak chew. So and you could do all of these in the crate too. So like it's kind of like, oh my gosh, this is like Disneyland. Mom and dad eat and I get to be in my crate and I get to do nose work and I get a peanut butter Kong and I get a yak chew. Or you could even do an enrichment toy, um, and you can make your own like with um, a plastic water bottle where you just throw in some treats or some kibble, and like you want to put the lid on and then poke some holes in it just big enough for one treat at a time to come out. So for one, the dogs like the crunchy sound of the water bottles, and then they have to move it around, roll it around, play with it to get the toys to come out. That's going to take a while, depending on how many treats you put in there or pieces of kibble. It's going to take a while, but it's going to keep your dog occupied and busy. And that might be really enriching. Plus, it's going to tire your dog out. Um, or you could do like, do I have them here? I think they might all be at my office. But I also use the balls where the dog has to like roll it around to get the treats to fall out. It's the same principle as like the water bottle. Um, what else have I done? Oh, so when I worked at the rescue, we made some of our own enrichment toys. So we would save like our cracker boxes, cereal boxes, paper towel rolls, and we would like stick a knife in and smear the inside with peanut butter, pumpkin, low fat cream cheese, toss some kibble and treats in, and then like a cereal box, you just tape the one side shut, or with the paper towel rolls, you can just bend the sides in. You can tape them if you want. I've never seen a dog like actually eat the tape or the cardboard. But then we poke some holes in with a fork so they can smell what's inside, and then give it to your dog in the crate and let him tear it apart. Or you could give it to your dog outside, depending on where you are and if you have a fence and stuff like that. Um, we would let the dogs just tear the. It's just a throat lossing stage. We would let the dogs like tear the cardboard to get what's inside, and the dogs loved it. The staff hated me because it does make a mess and you have to clean it up. But if it means that you get to enjoy dinner without the dog barking and whining, give them some enrichment so that they love it when you eat dinner, because that's when they get their snuffle mat or they get to destroy a cardboard box, or they get a puzzle toy or something like that. So um, I would try one of those, either more enrichment during dinner, or start working on the relaxation protocol and build up the time and the distractions so that your dog learns to stay on the mat and stay calm while you're eating dinner, and then he gets rewarded for it. Again, you'll have to start out with small duration and then build up to however long it takes you to eat dinner. Um, so, hope that answers it. Oh, okay. Hello, Mickey. I'm going to put you down. Again, if joining, that you put your name and either state or country so I can enter you in the drawing. Okay. My dogs are 2 years old and we didn't properly socialize them, so now they bark at anything and everything. We are teaching them quiet and they're doing pretty well, but keep barking at guests for hours. Um, okay. So if they're two, actually, I'm going to take a drink real quick. You can teach it quiet, but if it's a socialization or a lack of socialization, there's a couple things that I would do. So I'm assuming that guests come over and your dogs are barking at them a lot. Um, there's a couple of things you can do. You can do the relaxation so the dogs learn to be calm with increasing distractions. But at this point, you can't really socialize your dog with people, but you can do counter conditioning. So, and teach the dog what you want them to do instead. So with this, when people come over, so I'll give you a scenario. Somebody knocks at the door. I would teach like a flight cue. So the flight cue means um, I'm going to turn 180 degrees and have the best party and treats ever. So I use the word retreat. And you also want to use a treat that your dog never ever gets any other time. So it's kind of like Thanksgiving or Christmas, or like, if I say Thanksgiving, you think of turkey. So if you say like retreat or walk away, your dog automatically thinks, oh my gosh, this is when I get bacon. And the whole time you're going back, it's like, oh, good job, good job, good job. Like lots of praise. It has to be really fun. And I start by just throwing treats behind them because we're getting them to like turn and go the other way. And I would then build up distance to where you're taking your dog. I'm going to click on this and see if that message goes away. And hopefully, oh, good, it worked. Um, so somebody knocks at the door and you say retreat, and they go into the back room and they get a high value treat that they don't normally get. Then you have people come in and sit down and you give them treats. Then you bring your dogs out on leash and you teach them how you want them to greet people. At first, if they bark, what I would do is I would just ask people to toss treats at the dog. If they can, toss the treat behind the dog, so the dog has to retreat and then come back, retreat to get the treat, come back. But the dog's going to learn, oh, guests and strangers equal treat. I like it when guests and strangers come over because I get treats. And if they're eating treats, they're not barking. And they're making that association that guests equal treats. So if I was going to do that, I would toss the treats and then slowly, if the dog calms down, you can like just put your hand out and see if the dog like wants to come take a treat. Hi, Jade. If the dog doesn't want to come up, don't make him. Just keep tossing treats, and then as an owner, like you can then ask your dog to sit and learn how to, like, they can say hi by hand targeting, or they can take a treat out of somebody's hand. And then you can teach like a quiet and reward them for quiet. But basically, I like to have people sit down so they're not as high and like threatening or hovering. And I always tell people, don't like kind of turn sideways to the dog. Don't look directly at the dog because that can be a threat. So if the dog's barking at you and or at the guest and the guest is staring at them to the dog, that can be a threat. So the dog's going to keep barking because the guest probably unknowingly is kind of antagonizing the dog or challenging the dog. So I asked them to sit sideways. Um, so I worked with a dog last week who actually has bit a couple people. And so I asked them to put the dog in the back room when I came. We sat and chatted for like an hour, and then I had them bring the dog out on leash. And of course, the dog was lunging and barking. And I just turned sideways, didn't look at the dog, and started throwing treats. Threw him behind the dog, so the dog had to go away from me, get the treat, and then he would come back. I'd throw a treat, he'd go away, come back. We did that for about 15 minutes, and then he finally calmed down to where he was like wanting to come up to me but wasn't barking. So then I held out my hand and I gave the dog, you don't ever want to force the dog, but I just held out my hand and it's like, do you want to come take it out of my hand? And he came up and took it out of my hand and then backed away. And that was totally fine. It's like, come get the treat and you're fine to back up. Um, and eventually I was able to let the dog take a treat out of my hand and I didn't reach over the dog because that's when he would bite people or he'd come around from behind and bite. So once I gave him a treat, I would just slowly start to pet him under his chin. And that's how I said hi. I didn't try to like pet over his head, just like under his chin. And then if he backed away, I let him back away. Um, you can also do the engage, disengage, or the look at that. Again, you can find that. You can Google it. I believe it's in the resources on the Pupford site. If not, you can email me, Tracy with an I at pupford.com. I'm happy to send it to you. Just remind me when I'm sending you. I can also send you the steps on doing the flight cue. So what look at that is I would put the dogs in another room if somebody comes over, bring the dogs out, start at a distance to where your dogs can look at company and not bark. And I don't know what that distance is. For some dogs, it might be 5 feet. For some, it might be the whole length of your house. With some, you might have to start outside and do it like from a big long distance. Um, but whatever distance that you can start at where your dogs can just look at the person and not bark, that's where you start. Then, when they look at the person and they're calm, click treat. So that's all they have to do. They don't have to do anything else other than just notice the guest, notice the person, and not bark. Click treat. Um, and do that several times, and then you can ask the person to take one step closer, or you can take one step closer to the guest. Now, in my classes, when I say take one step closer, people always go 1, 2, 3. I'm like, no, that's 3 steps, not one step. And people that do that oftentimes cause their dog to go over threshold because 3 steps is quite a distance than just one. So you want to do it really gradually to where you're just going one step closer and then start again. And it's like, oh, look at the guest, click treat. The reason that I do use the clicker for this is because I want the dog to hear the click and learn to look away from the guest and be like, oh, I heard the click, where's my treat? Because then the dog will learn to disengage on his own. So it's like, oh, there's a guest, I'm gonna look away, mom, dad, where's my treat? And there's people here that I don't know. And then you can be like, oh, yep, that's just company, and we'll get closer, and then I'm gonna teach you like how I want you to say hi, which you've already told your guests. I want you to, once you get close enough, then you can have the guests start to like toss treats to the dog. So the dog learns, oh, hey, guests, I get treats. I love it when guests come over because I'm getting boiled chicken or I'm getting bacon or I'm getting hot dogs, um, things like that. So it's basically gradual desensitization. So you're desensitizing them from a distance and gradually getting them closer. And we're teaching them a different behavior. So instead of barking at guests, I want you to just notice that they're there and be calm, and I will reward you. If you take up closer and the dog starts to bark, then you say, oh, okay, let's back up. And then you increase distance because your goal is to always keep your dog under threshold. Um, you can also practice in places like Home Depot, Petco, and just take your dog through. And every time they see a person and don't bark, reward. Um, and then again, when people come over, um, do the look at that, have the people toss the treats, um, so that it changes their emotional response. So instead of like barking at people that they don't know, it's like, oh, when people come over, I get yummy treats. So I like it when people come over because then this happens. Um, so hopefully that helped. And again, if you want to email me, um, I am happy to send you the handouts for this. Um, okay. As another option too, I also offer virtual training to help for clients at a discount from my regular training rate. Like if I were to go to your house, and I have videos that I can actually show you what it looks like and show you how to do it, and then I can like kind of talk you through it as well. So if you're ever interested in that, also email me and I'm happy to set that up for you. Okay, next question. Um, how can I get my 11-week-old puppy from having food aggression with food and bones? Okay, that's a really good question. So first, I used to do this because this was how I was originally taught. Um, is that when you have a puppy, you need to play with their food and get them used to having your hand in their food. If you're doing that, then you can stop because that actually teaches dogs to kind of resource guard their food. It's the same as if you're in a restaurant and the waiter comes and tries to take your plate before you're done. Or, if you're eating and somebody like sticks their hand in your food, you're like, hey, like, really? Why are you doing that? It's the same. And actually putting your food in your dog's, putting your hand in your dog's food can create resource guarding and food aggression because they think, oh my gosh, they're going to take my food. So what I do with the food, so I do food and bones different. So I'll address food first. So as the dog is eating, I will walk by from a distance, and if the dog is like doesn't growl or whatever the dog's doing, then I'll toss a treat in their bowl. I don't say anything. I don't try and reach for it. I just like walk by, toss a treat. So the dog learns. Now, and I would probably need to know if your dog is having food aggression with you or other dogs. Um, because if it's with other dogs, then I would do the same thing, only I would walk a dog by. However, I would put myself between the two dogs, so there's kind of like a buffer there. And again, you're gonna start at a distance to where your dog can eat, but the other dog is far away. And then just walk by, toss a treat, and then slowly decrease distance so that the dog learns, oh, when another dog walks by, um, I get hot dogs with with my meal. So that good things happen when a person walks by or a dog walks by. Um, what I do, since I have 3 dogs, I do supervised um, food, and I believe in letting dogs enjoy their food and their bones. Um, without having to worry about another dog or person taking them. So if you're giving, and I'll tell you both ways that I do it. So since I have 3 dogs, if I give them yak chews or bully sticks or anything like that, number one, I'm here and I supervise them, but I also give them plenty of space. So like Maddie goes in the crate, um, I put one on a mat and maybe one behind a baby gate. And they don't get to all be together until they're all done. Or if they leave it before it's done, as soon as I pick them all up, then they can come back. Um, so I do that. I also teach trades. So at any given time, I can go up to my dogs and pick up their item, and they don't growl, they don't do anything. And that's because we have practiced trades. So if your dog has a bone, um, you have to offer something of equal or higher value. So either another bone or something better. And so I will offer the better item and say, drop it. And then when they drop it for the better item, that's when I mark it and say, yes, good drop. And then give them like the hot dog as I pick up the bone. After they eat the hot dog, I give the bone back and I say, okay, take it. So in the dog's mind, it's like, oh, I give up my bone, I get a piece of bacon or hot dog or chicken or whatever you're using, and then I get my bone back. So yeah, it's worth it. I'll give up my bone because I get this and then I get it back. And then sometimes I don't give it back because if your dog gets something that they're not supposed to have, then I will still trade. It's like, oh, sorry, you can't have that sock, so let's trade. Here, I'll give you this, and I'll say drop it. And then when they drop it, yes, good drop. And then I pick up the sock, give them that better item. The trick is you have to offer them something that's equal or higher value. So if they have a bone and you're just offering a milk bone, saying drop it, they're going to be like, I'm not giving up my bone for a milk bone. Are you kidding me? But it would be like, um, my I used to collect $2 bills, and if my brother got a $2 bill, um, I would say, "Hey, I'll give you $5 if you give me your $2 bill." And he's like, "Well, heck yeah, because I'm making $3." And so I give him $5, he'd give me his $2 bill. Or I would say, "Hey, if I give you two $1 bills, can I have your $2 bill?" And he didn't care about $2 bills, so he's like, "Yeah, whatever." So, but at least I was trading for something equal or higher value. Um, Another example would be like if you lend your car to somebody and they bring it back full of gas and totally detailed, you'd be like, heck yes, you can take my car anytime because I get it back better. Like, I wish somebody would borrow my car and do that for me. But to the dog, it's like, oh yeah, take it because I get this, I get it, I get this, plus I get this back. So with food aggression, you have to teach the dog that good things happen when there's food and bones around. So, walking by from a distance, tossing treats into their food, and then slowly getting closer. And then teaching trades. So, like, I'll give you this, drop it, yes, and then pick up the bone. After they eat the hot dog, it's like, okay, now you can have your bone back. Um, and then, like last night, my dogs were um, eating bully sticks, and two of them like left theirs at the same time, and then they went and like got each other's bone. But I was supervising them, and at one point, I'm like, okay, you guys are a little bit too close. Let's increase distance so that you don't feel threatened that the other dog's going to take yours. Um, and then at one point, I said, okay, we're done. And then I picked them all up and put them away, and they get them another time. So I always supervise that. So hopefully that answers your question. if it didn't give me more information, like if your dog's guarding from people or other dogs or kids or things like that. And Cindy, yes, I will send you the 101 box, the 101 things. Just email me to remind me at Tracy with an I at pupford.com. If you'll just email me and remind me, then I will be happy to send that to you. Okay, and probably this is going to be the same answer that I just gave. This is another one. What do you do to stop a puppy from becoming aggressive towards Bones? He's 9 months, and over the past couple months has become worse towards our 10-year-old Puggle. So what I would do in that case is when you give your 9-month-old. So first, what I would do is give your puppy a bone, but then start to walk your Puggle from a distance. And if your dog is fine with humans being around his bone, if you have two people, like one of you is going to walk the Puggle by, but from a distance to where your puppy can notice the Puggle, but the Puggle's far away, like far enough away that your dog is not going to go after him. And when he notices the Puggle walking by, somebody else is tossing, like I'll just use hot dogs as an example, is tossing hot dogs on the ground with the bone. And then when the Puggle walks by, the hot dogs stop. Then you can walk the Puggle by a little bit closer. If you notice the puppy like lip curl or snarl or anything like that, then you need to increase the distance that the Puggle walks by. But basically, we want to teach the 9-month-old, when the Puggle walks by, good things happen, I get hot dogs. The first thing we always want to do is environmental management. So if you have a 10-year-old Puggle, what I would do is, if you have to give your 9-month-old a bone, I would separate the dogs. So put one behind a baby gate, probably the Puggle. If the Puggle doesn't have separation anxiety, put the Puggle behind a baby gate. You can give the Puggle something to do too, so he's occupied and not being like punished. It's like, oh my gosh, why do I have to go to my room? I didn't do anything wrong. It's like, oh, I get to go behind the baby gate and I get to have a stuffed Kong, or I get to have something fun. And just separate them so that there's no fighting over it. And then again, I always supervise it. And I would also work through a crate training and separation anxiety protocol, just so that at some point you can crate your dog, and it's just a matter of creating a positive association. So doing some slow crate training, and then and what I do is, like, I'll put a treat right on the outside of the door, and then inside, and then a little farther, so the dog has to go in to get the treat, turn around, come out. And I do that for a bit before I even close the door. And then the dog goes in, I close the door, open it, let him come out. I'll work up to closing, latching, unlatch, open. And then work up to taking one step back, coming back, open. And then I would probably work through a separation anxiety protocol as well. I know that Pupford has a really good training course on separation anxiety, and I would recommend going through that, just so that you can crate your dog. Or I would just do crate training and then start to leave and come back, start to leave and come back. The protocol now with separation anxiety is is we don't even crate them. We teach them how to be calm without crating. However, I like to crate train all my dogs because if they go to the vet, if they go to the groomer and they have to be crated, it's good for them to be able to be in a crate. Um, my dog Maddie, when she sees that I have bully sticks or yak chews, she will automatically go to her crate because it's like, oh yay, it's bully stick time, and this is where I get mine in my crate. So she'll automatically go in, and if I'm here and can supervise, I don't even shut the door. She just stays in there till it's done. The other dogs know where their spot is, and they don't even bother the other dogs. So hopefully that answered your question. If your dog has like true separation anxiety, then yeah, you're probably going to have to go through the separation anxiety course because it's a lot more detailed than what I can cover here in this setting. Um, but you can do crate training very slowly and then slowly increase the amount of time to where you take one step away, two steps away, you go like behind a wall, immediately come back so that you're just working up to it. And anybody who has what I'm calling COVID dogs, where, COVID happened, people got dogs, they never left, the dog's alone, and so now the dog doesn't know how to be alone. Um, like kind of working through that and teaching the dog that, oh, they're leaving, but they're coming back. Like leave for 1 second, come back. Leave for 5 seconds, come back. Things like that. Okay. All right, I gotta scroll. It doesn't like to scroll for some reason. In about 10 minutes, I will do, oh, there we go. Write Melissa down. In 10 minutes, I'll do the drawing. And then if we still have more people on, I'm happy to stay on for another half hour and answer questions. And then usually by 8 o'clock my time, my voice is gone. So I've been eating like throat lozenges as we're talking so I can go as long as I can. Oh, I was just reading. Okay. We have had Dasher a year today. Congratulations. Um, he will not stop jumping or running full force into you. Plus, he likes to bite when jumping. Not mean bite, just super mouth bite. Um, okay. So, I have that issue with Jade. And the reason, and I've had Jade a year. Yeah. Well, a little over a year, but about a year. The reason that she still jumps because it gets reinforced. Because people either say, "Oh, I don't mind, she's so cute," and I'm like, "Well, I know she's cute, but it doesn't mean she can jump." Um, and so sometimes people will inadvertently, you can see Jade right there, like she is, Jade, like she is super cute, but it doesn't mean that I want her jumping on everybody. So this is Jade. We're actually training her to be a service dog. So what she does when she jumps is people will say, "Oh, Jade, you gotta get down. Your mom's gonna get mad." And so they are inadvertently reinforcing the jumping. Okay, you can go play now. Or you can come up here. So they're inadvertently reinforcing that because they're talking to her, touching her, giving her attention. Even if they're pushing her off, they're giving her attention. Um, so I instruct people to turn their back, but then it's up to me to teach the dog what I want them to know and to do instead. So if you watched, in fact, for the 11th day of Christmas, they had a tip from Zach George, which talks about this exact same thing. It's up to the owner to teach the dog what to do. So if you haven't watched that yet, go back and watch it because it shows him having a dog sit and then somebody else like running around, um, being distracting, and then um, Zach is rewarding the puppy for sitting. So I will ask people like, I'll say, if Jake jumps, I want you to turn your back, don't give her any attention. But then I'll say, Jake, sit. And then as soon as she sits, I'll reward her and tell people, okay, now you can pet her while she's sitting. If she jumps again, I want you to ignore her, turn your back. But then I tell her sit, and she only gets attention when she's sitting. And then I will even give people treats and say, okay, if she's sitting here, you can give her a treat, you can pet her, um, give her attention, things like that. And the same thing when jumping. That dog that I was working with today was literally jumping and grabbing onto clothes. Um, so what I did was I taught the dog how to hand target, and instead of jumping and biting, we did sit, touch. And the dog only got rewarded if he did the target with the closed mouth. I was going to see if I had a dog here. Usually I have one behind me. So as soon as the dog would start to jump again, I would say, oh, sit. And then when the dog would sit, yeah, good boy. And then I would pet him or give him a treat. If he would start to bite, it's like, oh, we don't do that. Here, let's touch. Let's hand target, touch. And then he would touch his nose to my hand. And we did luring, so we went through the steps to teach it. And then the dog started to learn that, oh, if I sit, then she'll give me treats. Then when I was talking to the owner, when the dog was sitting, I would intermittently like just treat him. It's like, oh, good boy, good sit. And I didn't really have to mark it because he's already sitting, but I was going to continue to treat him for sitting instead of jumping and biting because this was one of the worst cases of jumpy bitey that I have ever seen. Like jumping and grabbing onto clothes. So, you know, I will say, hey, but then sit, touch. And also, if the dog is sitting, the dog's not jumping. And if the dog is not jumping, then they're not like jumping up and biting. Um, and so I will redirect that into like a sit and then even a sit stay or down stay. And then, oh, thank you, here's a treat. And I will reward them with treats and attention. And with this dog, like I would start to pet him and then he'd get mouthy. So it's like, then I would stop giving him attention. So as long as he's biting or jumping, I would ignore him, but then I would teach him what I wanted him to do instead, which is sit. So think of an incompatible behavior. Again, if the dog is sitting, and if you watch that training tip from Zach, he has this puppy sitting and focusing on him. So while the lady was like running around and being distracting, as long as the puppy was sitting and focusing on him, he was getting rewarded. So again, it's up to you to teach the dog what you want. And now if it's you that he's jumping and biting, then it's the same thing. It's like, I want you to sit, I want you to hand target, I want you to focus on me. If the dog's running into you full force, then I would do some impulse control exercises like sit and wait, and then I will give you some attention or treats. You can teach like a slow down cue. For that, I might even have the dog drag a leash, or so if the dog like starts to run into you, like you can hold the leash out so the dog can't actually like get you with the knees, things like that. But I think some sit, stay, down, stay, um, teaching them that that's what's going to give them attention, not running into you, not jumping, not biting. With the biting, you can also redirect to a toy. So I have, if you've seen my posts on Facebook in the community, you've seen me talk about the 3 bite strike rule. And I learned this from another trainer and I love it. So the first time a dog bites, redirect to a toy. If the dog comes back and bites you, then you calmly pick the dog up, put him in a crate with a toy so it's not a punishment, and leave him there for 1 to 2 minutes to kind of chill out. Then let the dog out. If the dog goes back to biting you again, then they go back in the crate with a toy, cover the crate, and they get a long time out. And that's to let them chill out, take a nap, but it's also to give you a break from all the jumping and biting. So you could try that as well. And especially if your dog is super mouthy. It's like, okay, first strike, here, you get a toy to chew on instead of me. Second strike is, okay, we're going to go in a crate, but here, you get a toy and you're going to chill out for 2 minutes. And then third strike is, okay, we're going to go in the crate. Here's your toy. We're going to cover it, and we're going to ignore you for an hour or however long you need for the dog to settle down. Okay. Mini double doodle double coat. So I'm assuming this is the, yeah, I would ask a groomer what they use. I used to have a Samoyed that had a double coat, and there was a special comb that I used for a double coat, and I can't remember what it's called. It looks just kind of like a, it looked kind of like a rake, but small. But it was specifically for double coated dogs. So I think if you just Google, grooming tool for double coat, it'll probably come up with something. Or I would ask, I mean, I'm assuming if you have a doodle, at some point you're going to have to get your doodle groomed. And then I would ask them what they use for grooming, and then see what they suggest. Okay, Anitra, I've got to scroll. I need that on quiet because my dog barks every time someone comes in for the next 5 minutes, even if I call her and tell her to come. Yeah, so the thing with come is I only teach come on leash so that I can reel the dog in to reinforce the behavior. And I don't say the word come unless I'm 100% sure that the dog's going to do it. Because if somebody's at the door or you have company come in, that's going to be more distracting, and your dog likely is not going to come to you. So you can have your dog, like if you know somebody's going to come over, put your dog on a leash, and then you can say, like, Rover, come, and then reel them in and reward them, and make coming to you be more reinforcing than barking at somebody else. But yeah, I would do a quiet and then a sit and a wait while somebody comes in. I would also maybe do the flight cue so that when somebody knocks on the door, the dog knows, oh, we retreat, we go to the back room, we get our really high value treat. And then you can bring them out on leash and teach them how to properly greet somebody. But have the company automatically like down. They can have treats, they can toss treats to the dog, things like that. Okay, Laura, we've started the relaxation protocol, but outside of the crate. Never thought about it with the crate. Um, yes. So with the relaxation protocol, once you do it like in one spot, then you can start to practice it in different rooms, practice it in the crate, things like that. So once the dog learns it, theoretically, you could even put a bed like by the table, kitchen table, if you get to that point, and teach the dog how to settle like right on the bed while you're eating or something like that. Um, oh, he's got hound in him. Yes. So the noise is loud and dramatic. Yes, I know. My neighbor has hound dogs that he hunts with. Um, so, yeah, you could eat in shifts at first, and then I would slowly, if you're going to eat in shifts anyway, you could do that, but then start to slowly be like, okay, we're just going to sit down at the table, get up, reward. Sit down at the table, 5 seconds, get up, reward. Um, and I would start the relaxation protocol once you have done it outside of the crate, do it inside of the crate. Or you could start over and start with the 5 seconds, but do it in the crate. So you could do that too. Um, so always enjoy these. Thank you. You are more than welcome. I enjoy these too. This is like my favorite time of the week. I love doing these. Yeah, and for anybody, so I'll do a drawing now for anybody that has to leave. And if you do want to leave, um, have a wonderful holiday weekend. Be safe. And I will see you next Wednesday, same time. It'll be New Year's Eve then. Um, but yeah, anybody that has to jump off, have a great Christmas. Okay, let me write down Julie. Welcome back, Julie. Julie's been here. Julie actually won our free treat giveaway like 2 weeks in a row. Okay. Um, okay, so let's do the drawing, and then I'll stay on for another half hour. And let me write down Karen really quick. I'll get as many names as I can before we do the drawing. Illinois. And then I'll come back and answer the question about the Shibu Inu, and then I'll go in order again. Angie from Brooklyn. Okay, I don't see any down here. So let me go back so I don't forget anybody's question. Okay, so let me just put these in, and then I'm going to draw really quick. Tonight, our winner is Mickey Winans, or I'm sorry if I slaughtered your name, but Mickey from Ohio is our winner tonight for our free training treat. So, Mickey, what you need to do is email Pupford at hello@pupford.com and let them know which flavor you want. And I will email them as well and let them know that you won the drawing. And let me put it in the chat just in case people are watching it later. Okay. So congratulations, Mickey. So yes, you email them, I email them, let them know what flavor, and then they will send you out a free bag of training treats. Okay, let me scroll back up, and I don't know why my computer hates to scroll. Okay, while I'm figuring this out, I do remember that other question. It took me down to the bottom, of course, where I put in the thing, in the chat. Okay. So, again, if you If you heard my spiel about the 3 strike bite rule, I would do that with the Shiba Inu. So strike one is you get a toy. So redirect to a toy. If the dog comes back and bites you again, calmly put your dog in a crate with a toy, and do a timeout for like 1 to 2 minutes. Then let the dog out. If the dog goes back to biting you a third time, calmly pick them up, put them in the crate with a toy, cover the crate, and they get a longer timeout to chill, um, take a break, and that also gives you a break from getting bit all the time. Um, and then you can also think of a replacement behavior. So I like to do hand targeting because the dog has to do it with a closed mouth. So I will use touch and have the dog touch and then reward. Um, when we were doing it with the puppy today, like sometimes he would go for my hand with an open mouth and I'd say, oh, try again. And I would and only reward the one where closed mouth and he just touched his nose. Um, so you can do that as a replacement behavior. Or you can do like a focus, like, oh, watch me. So anything other than biting. So you can reward any behavior other than biting, reward your dog for that, and let them know that that's what's going to get you the attention and the reward, not the biting. You can also try like walking away, going in another room, closing the door. So the biting behavior is not going to get them attention or interaction from you, but instead it's going to make you go away. So you can use either one of those. Um, oh yeah, empty Gatorade bottle, that works great. Um, and without the cap, how do you do it without the cap and not have all the kibble fall out? I I always put the cap on and then just a knife or a fork or something. But yes, and then if the dog chews the bottle, I mean, I drink a lot of water, so I just replace the bottle, so that works too. Um, okay. Anita, this is a good question. I've never socialized any of my dogs. Do they really need to be around other dogs? If you don't care that your dogs aren't socialized, um, you don't really need to. We have a large yard, so never have other dogs in our yard or walk dogs where other dogs are. I mean, if that's your lifestyle and you're not around other dogs, then you probably don't need to. Also, with socialization, it's kind of like with kids and people, like they don't need to be friends with everybody in the world. And like when I was growing up, my parents didn't make me meet every child in the neighborhood. I had like, my friends and that's who I hung out with and that was it. Um, so if you're not really around other dogs and if your dogs get enough exercise in your big yard and you walk where there aren't any other dogs, then you're probably fine. Um, so mainly socialization is for people that like want to go to dog parks or live in busy areas where there are a lot of other dogs or they like taking their dogs everywhere with them, things like that. So if you don't care that your dogs um, aren't going to be social around other dogs, then no, you really don't need to socialize them. If you want your dog to like go to doggy daycare or things like that, then yeah, it's a good idea to socialize them. But so like with I socialize my dogs, but it's just because I do board and train, and I need my dogs to be social around any dog I bring home. I've also, Jade is in training to be a service dog, so I need her to not necessarily like want to play with every dog she sees, but she needs to be social enough to be able to walk by another dog or things like that. Um, but like I have a cousin who had a wolf hybrid, and he lives a pretty solitary life. And so he didn't socialize his dog because he didn't need to, and he wasn't around people, and he lives on a lot of acreage, so it wasn't really necessary. So yeah, if that's the kind of lifestyle you have, oh sorry, turn that off. Okay, sorry that one. If that's your lifestyle and you aren't planning on being around other dogs, then yeah, you probably don't need to. Okay, this is a really good question. My dog went through an eye surgery 3 weeks ago, and since then he has been growling, snapping, and today he bit my family member. He has become a totally different dog. Um, so it could be a pain response. Sometimes, if dogs are in pain, it can cause them to be more reactive and bite. I would want more information like how old is your dog? What kind of eye surgery? Um, can your dog see? So, if your dog has like an eye impairment to where your dog can't see as well, then maybe having somebody come up and like touch him, and he can't tell that you're going to touch him, or it looks different to him, things like that, then that makes sense. Then you could do slow, like desensitization to get him used to that again. Um, I would also have family members like, if you say, okay, he had eye surgery, he's kind of not feeling the same, if he doesn't see the same, so you want to go slow with him, let him know that it's like, oh, hey, buddy, hey, I'm going to come up and like pet you. I would also want to know like how you are approaching him, um, things like that. And with that, it might be a good idea to see your vet as well, because if it is a medical thing to where he just can't see, and so he's growling and snapping because of a fear response. It's like, oh my gosh, somebody's coming towards me and I can't tell who it is, or I'm in pain, I don't want anybody to bug me. Um, with eye surgery, I don't know like how long to expect a dog to be in pain or feel different, but it sounds like that's the contributing factor. So I would talk to your vet first, um, and see what they say. Just say, they might say, oh yeah, it's going to take 2 months before your dog can see normal again. Um, and then I would make sure that no family members are like surprising the dog, or, um, like touching like from behind if it's going to like kind of scare him, things like that. Um, so yeah, I would talk to your vet first, and then if he says, well, everything should be fine and your dog should be able to see fine, your dog shouldn't be in pain, um, then you can start to like counter condition, desensitize the dog to. Um, I would also want to know like what happened right before the dog bit or right before the dog growled or snapped. So was it you approaching, or was it you touching or petting or grabbing paws or things like that? And then you can desensitize and counter condition to that. Um, so hopefully that helps. If you want to email me, I'm happy to try to help you through that. But I would need more information, like what's happening right before. And I would also want your vet to give a clear like check, like, yep, everything's fine, the eyes should be fine. The dog shouldn't be in pain, things like that. Because we always want to rule out medical first. Because if it is a medical reason, like your dog can't see or your dog's in pain or it's uncomfortable, then all the training in the world isn't going to change it if it's an underlying medical reason. Um, okay. How can I get my puppy to like her crate again? We have been in quarantine and now the kids are off with winter break. So when everyone goes back to their regular schedule, I have to start to put in. So um, it's a, so if your puppy isn't having like separation anxiety type stuff, you can do things like give a stuffed comb in the crate, feed in the crate, give everything good in the crate. So like my dogs love the puppered turbo tendons, so like I will give those in the crate. Um, if your dog has gotten to the point where they don't like the crate, then I would start crate training all over again as if you have a brand new puppy. So treat right outside the door, then right in the door, and then put it a little bit farther in. So each time the dog has to go in a little bit farther to get the treat. And then I always let them go, then I'll toss it all the way to the back of the crate, have them go in, turn around, come out. And I'll do each step like 5 times. Then when they go in, I'll close the door, open it, let them out. So I would just start over with crate training again. But if you've already crate trained it, then your puppy should pick it up a lot quicker. And then have all good things happen in the crate. That's why I always like to give their yak, chews, bully sticks, things like in the crate. So number one, the dogs are kind of separated and they learn that that's where all the yummy stuff happens in the crate. So, and then you can feed in the crate too. So the dog learns, oh, I like my crate because that's where I get my food. And I would start it now before your kids have to go back. And when you have to go back to your regular schedule, I would start it now so that your dog gets used to it before you actually need to do it. Okay, I love Danielle's question. I'm going to kind of give a smart aleck answer and then I'll give you a real answer. When petting or cuddling, my puppy constantly licks. How do I curb excessive licking? If you let me know, if you figure it out, let me know because I have the same issue with Jade. So Jade is a terrible, like she always wants to lick my face and everything. So when I cuddle with her, let's see if I can get her. Jade, she probably won't do it now because she's tired and she's been sleeping. But if I cuddle with her, if she's wound up, oh, see, she's calm right now. So I'm actually, while she's tired and calm, I'm just going to pray to, oh, what a good girl. Oh, that's such a good girl. But if she starts to lick, which she usually does when she's wound up, she'll constantly try to lick me, and then I'll just like get up and walk away or move away. Or I'll say, I will teach them kiss on command. Hey, kiss. Yeah, good girl, good kisses. And then I'll teach like no kisses. So if she's, okay, you can go back to sleep. Sorry. So if she's, now my nose is wet. So I'll teach her, it's kind of like teaching a dog to speak on cue so you can teach quiet. I will teach kiss, and then I will teach like no kisses. And then if she doesn't stop licking, then I stop giving her attention. So it's like, I'll cuddle with you and pet you, but only if you're not licking, unless I ask. So if you teach kiss on cue, then if you don't want your dog to kiss, like then don't give the that cue. And if she licks on her own, you can say like no kisses, or sometimes I'll get up and walk away, or I'll ignore her. Or if she starts to lick, I stop petting her. So that licking is going to make me stop petting. Or if I'm cuddling with her and she's licking my face, then I'll move to the other side of the couch or like stop cuddling so that she learns that if I lick, mom's going to go away, or mom's not going to cuddle me, or mom's not going to pet me. So that's what I do. It is a work in progress though, because she is relentless licker. Um, so yeah, it does take a lot of time. And when my cousin's little boy comes over, he lets the dogs lick him, and he likes it, and he makes it a game, and he's on the floor like wrestling with them, and he's laughing. So then the dog's getting reinforced for licking and constantly licking. So if even one person reinforces that and allows it to happen, then the dog gets reinforced for that, and it's going to continue. So you kind of have to let everybody know. What I do is I tell people, yeah, I wouldn't let Jade lick you because she's poop. She's actually not my poop eater. That's Daphne. But if I don't want her to lick, or if I don't want people to let her lick, I'll just say, oh yeah, she eats the cat's poop. I wouldn't let her lick your face. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to let her lick me. But yeah, if you're petting or cuddling and she's licking, then one thing you can do is either put it on not to do it, or stop whatever you're doing. And then when she stops licking, you can start petting again. When she stops licking, you can cuddle her again. If she starts licking, then stop cuddling or stop petting. So she learns that. I had to laugh when I read your question though, because I deal with the exact same thing. Um, okay, next question. I think I have time for like two more questions. Um, oh, I'm going to answer three though, because this other one I see is really good. Okay, any tips to transition my puppy from puppy pads to going outside? Um, yeah, so that's kind of why I'm not a fan of puppy pads, just because it teaches dogs to go inside. Um, so what you could do is, if you see him, um, yeah, if you see him starting to go on the pad, you can say, "Oh, let's go potty outside," and then immediately pick him up, take him outside, and say, "Go potty." And then at first, you might have to walk around for 15 to 20 minutes until your dog like can't hold it and goes outside. As soon as your dog like lifts his leg or squats, then mark it. It's like, yes, good potty. Oh, what a good boy. And then when he's done, you can give him a treat. The actual reward is relieving himself, but you can give a secondary reward as a treat. Um, Another thing that you could do, if your dog's used to using the potty pads, is take the puppy pad outside and get him used to going outside and going on the potty pads, putting the potty pads on the grass, getting him used to going on the potty pads on the grass, and then take the potty pads away. So now he's used to going outside, going on the grass, and then eventually go on the grass without the potty pads. So if he's holding it outside, I would maybe start to take the pads outside with you, and walk him around. If he goes on the pad, you can reward him, but I would reward him even more if he goes somewhere outside other than the pad. But you may have to transition up to that if he's really used to that and he's holding it. They can't hold it forever, so again, sometimes you have to walk around for like 15, 20 minutes. I would walk them around on leash so that they're not like sniffing and exploring and forgetting that it's potty time. It's not playtime. It's not sniff and explore. Yeah, they're going to sniff because that's what they do when they go potty, but there's a difference between sniffing to go potty and sniffing because we're outside and there's all these distractions and new smells. So I'm not going to go potty because I'm busy doing this other thing. Um, and then long-lasting chews for a 3 to 4 month old puppy. Um, I I would try the turbo tendons because they're soft enough that it's not going to like break their teeth, but they last my adult dogs quite a while. They love chewing on those turbo tendons, the ones that Pupford sells. They're my dog's favorite. Another one that you can do is a Kong. I think I have one right here actually. So I use this one only because I have pit bulls. The black ones are the strongest. They do make some softer ones. Let me just see if I have one right here real quick. Oh, I must have moved it. The Kong has some softer ones that are shaped like a big pacifier. They're pink and blue. They still have the end that you can stuff the peanut butter in, and then freeze it, and then give it to your dog. And they'll it'll take a while for them to lift the insides out if it's frozen, but then they can also chew on the Kong, and these are really long lasting. Again, depending on the breed, I use these just because they're pit bull proof. But for a 3 to 4 month old puppy, you could get the cute one that looks like a pacifier and still stuff it. And then it has the little ring handle on it, so puppies like to chew on that as well. So I would try either the turbo tendons or the yak chews, things like that. Or the turbo tendons or Kong. Um, and let's see, what else have I used? Sometimes jerky, like the chicken jerky. You don't want it hard because you don't want your puppy to break teeth. Um, so that's why I like the turbo tendons, and I also like the Kong just because it's softer. Um, Another one that's good is like a rope toy because they can really sink their teeth into that, and you could spread. I mean, it might be kind of messy, but you could do it in their crate. But like spread peanut butter or something like on it so that they're chewing on it, but still getting that like peanut butter type thing. We also at the rescue we used Nylabones, um, and they make some for puppies, and they come in different flavors like beef flavor, bacon flavor. You can like Google those from Amazon. Um, and they come like there was one that was shaped like a fish, and it was salmon flavored, and they come in the smaller ones for puppies. And so the dogs at the rescues like love to chew on those because they tasted like salmon, but they weren't too hard. So you could try that as well. Um, okay, I've got time for one more question. So I'm going to talk about the dog attacking the window when you get a delivery. Um, so every time your dog attacks the window, it is reinforcing because when the UPS, we'll just say UPS, could be FedEx or whatever, when the UPS guy comes and brings a delivery and your dog's barking and then the delivery guy leaves, in your dog's mind, he's making that happen. He or she, I'm not sure which. So it's like if I bark and attack the window, I can make this guy leave. So the first thing we always do is environmental management. Because it's reinforcing every single time he does that, we want that behavior to not even be able to occur. So you can use drapes, you can use blinds. I've had some people use that. They use it during the holidays where, like, they do snow. It's like not paint; it's like some kind of film. So you can actually like put kind of a film on the bottom part of your window so that your dog can't see out. Um, so you want to try to block the dog's view so that your dog can't see when the delivery people come. Um, That's the first way to do it, is to prevent that from even happening. Sometimes, so like just the way I have my house set up, I have like flower arrangements in my window, so my dogs can't even see out the window. So they can't see if the delivery guy comes unless they're outside. Then when they're outside, sometimes they'll bark fence, but the UPS guy will come and like give them bones and treats. So now they've learned, oh, when the UPS guy comes, there he is, where he's going to give us bones, and so then they're quiet. But if your dog's always inside, then the first thing I would do is limit access to the window. If that's not possible, then I would teach a different behavior like a flight cue. So I talked about the flight cue earlier. If you missed it, it's basically like a retreat. So it's bigger than a leave it. You could do a leave it, but I teach a flight cue, which basically to the dog means I turn 180 degrees and have the best party and treats ever. So you want to pick a treat that your dog never gets any other time except when they hear the flight cue. So I use bacon because that's the only time my dogs get bacon. And I'll teach it, I won't try to teach it when the UPS guy's coming. I'll start with something dumb like I might put a glass of water down on the ground. And then as soon as the dog goes up to sniff it, I'll say retreat, and I throw the bacon behind them. So they learn to turn and go the other way, get the bacon. And then it's like, oh, good dog, yay. And it's like tons of praise, best party ever. In fact, some of my clients have used the verbal cue party time just to remind themselves that it's like a big party and the only time they get bacon. And then you can start to increase distance. So then you throw it. So then it's like, now I'm going to like, you're going to say, retreat, let's run this way. And then you get your bacon. So if you do that enough that your dog just learns that every time you can start doing it, okay, let's walk window without the delivery guy coming. So let's walk to the window and then do a retreat. And so it's like, oh, I turn, get the best party treats ever. And then you can start doing it with the delivery guy. But I would do it on leash so that if you say retreat and the dog's too focused on the delivery guy, you can kind of help with the leash. So you can start to back away, get the dog to turn, throw the treats behind him. Oh, look, let's go this way. It's more fun this way. Look, we have bacon. And make it more fun than barking at the delivery guy. Then eventually, when your dog sees the delivery guy, he'll automatically know, oh, there's the delivery guy. I turn and go this way, and it's more fun going this way because I get bacon. And if you can't be there to do the flight cue or to reinforce that other behavior, so if it's like during the day and your dog has free roam, I would limit access to the window or the door so that your dog can't even see out. You could also do something like a go to your place, but I think it's going to be more reinforcing for your dog to do like a flight cue, get tons of praise, have really yummy treats, and remember something that your dog never gets any other time. So that when they hear that flight cue, it's like, oh my gosh, it's Thanksgiving and I get turkey. For the dog, it's like, oh, I hear party time and I get bacon or boiled chicken or whatever you want to use. So that's what I would do. First, limit access so he can't even see out the window, and then start to teach a flight cue, and then you can slowly do it. Like walk your dog towards the window without any distractions. Do that several times, and then you can start doing it with the delivery person. But you want to make sure that your dog's on leash so that you can help reinforce that with the leash. Okay, so that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm surprised how many people were here with it being so close to the holidays. So I really appreciate you guys coming and taking part in the live Q&A. I will be back next Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So come with your questions. Also, I do try and get on the 30-Day Perfect Pup at least 5 or 6 days a week for 20, 30 minutes. So you can post your questions there and I will try to answer them um, there as well if I didn't get to them tonight. So thanks everybody, and I hope you all have a happy holiday, and I'll see you next week.